Um, Thank you very much for bearing with us, and I hope you're not sleeping by this time. I was asked to speak about the economic and development strategies in a transitional period in the Arab region or the Middle East, and how and where does social entrepreneurship play a role. I decided to change a little bit because I'm a social entrepreneur after all, and I would like to say some remarks first before I go into the subject. One of the first things I would like to say is some remarks because I've been here for the whole day and I really would like to respond to some of the issues that was raised, but also because everything is interrelated. We cannot talk about economics without talking about politics. And I think this was also what Adel was saying now. First, I'd like to say a personal remark. I'm very happy with a lot of the people that talked about the Arab awakening from March, even from February, but from March mainly. I wasn't really very happy with the term Arab Spring. I think the spring will come. It will be a long way, but it will come. But I think what really happened in the region, in Egypt and other places, was an Arab awakening. We woke up. We were sleeping for a long time. We had no voice. We had no pride. And I always say that the young people got us our voice back. And we will not give it again, and we will not give it up. But it's really an awakening, and I think it's important because in Arabic and English it means a lot of things, and it's important. Semantics makes a big difference. The second thing is, there was a remark about the identity of the Arab awakening, and someone in the morning said that there was a first wave of Arab awakening, a second one, maybe this is the third one. And there was an insinuation, which is also true, that the awakening which started in the Levant in the early last century was a very secular one. It was started by some Christian intellectuals and leftists. And then there was the second wave, which was more nationalistic and again secular by Nasser and the coup d'etats, and it was against the occupation. But what I really am a little bit worried about is tying the latest awakening, and I'm going to speak about Egypt, but I also think Tunisia, with a religious awakening. It is true that the Islamists have hijacked a lot of the things that the young people have done in Egypt now, but the beginning of the awakening was secular. I will not claim that I'm one of the young people that started or instigated the revolution, but I was there for 11 days out of the 18. And it was a secular awakening, and it was an awakening more than it was a revolution, because people went out. They went down because they had no jobs, because they were being very oppressed, because there was corruption, because there was repression, and people were going out all the time. And I think it's because the system was so corrupt and the government was so there was no foundation, and they reacted in the most unintelligent way that really they brought their own collapse. So if you looked at historically what happened in Egypt, it started by a revolt, a demonstration asking for more rights, for jobs, for better economic conditions, and it ended into a revolution. And I think this is very important to highlight that. And again, it is also important to say that during the Tahrir Square, and Tahrir Square is only a symbol because people in Egypt were everywhere. Everybody was there. Women and men, young people, old people, rich people, poor people. Again, it was started by the young people, but everyone was there at the end. I was there, and other people who are not veiled were there, and nobody harassed us. In a place where it was millions, really, really, it was very tight. So at the end, it was a place where everybody was there. So this awakening in Egypt did not start, did not have a religious zest. It was not an Islamic crusade, if I can say that. So I think this is very important. I also think that what is also important is, and again I'm going to speak only about Egypt, this is our first real street revolution. People keep on comparing with what happened. First of all, 1952, although I love Nasser, but it was a coup d'etat and it was an ideological movement by people which related to the masses and was able to reach the masses because they kind of related to the masses and they helped them and they supported them with some economic policies. But this is the first time where a real street revolution, even 1919 in Egypt, where people are saying that there was a revolt and that the people were there, it was a revolt so that the Prime Minister, Saad Zaghloul would come back, one of the most important political leaders, but there was no change in the system. And in spite of everybody saying that nothing has happened in Egypt, no, the system has collapsed. There are, of course, remnants, and you know, there are still some foundations, but I think they're shallow and they will fall. But I think this is also very important. So what now? Why am I saying this, and how is this relevant to the economic and development strategies and social entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship per se? Well, if we really talk about job creation, and it's important because we have a very, very bad economic situation now in Egypt and a very deteriorating economic situation, we cannot, as I said, separate it from a political system. If we want to promote entrepreneurship, which means being innovative, thinking out of the box, being critical, if you want to promote that, you have to have an enabling environment, an environment that encourages that, an environment that legally, politically, socially, and educationally supports and does not penalize people who think out of the box. And this is extremely important. Before the revolution, we had high rates of unemployment. We had 1 in every 5 Arabs, I mean, not only in Egypt, was unemployed. Now we have 2 out of every 5 Egyptians above the age of 20 unemployed. And this was the latest thing that came out of the government, the current government. We had an educational system and a political system. And I believe that if you want to change education, it's a political decision. We had a political system and an education system that penalized people who thought out of the box. Kids in school were penalized if they even had a definition that is not the same one as in the book, although it might be right. Kids in university were penalized because they had a security guy, and the professors used it against the kids that they didn't like, I mean the students. So this was very important. And then we also had a legal framework that penalized entrepreneurship per se. Someone mentioned just now about the bankruptcy law. For example, if you are a young person and you want to start a business, you'll go to jail if you go bankrupt. So I mean, if you have this as a system, why would you even try? The same thing in the social sector. If I'm in the social sector and the government decided I have done something wrong with one paper is wrong, or not that I've even done an embezzlement or anything, I can go to jail. So people are penalized if they take initiative. And this has to change. And in order to do this, so what do we need? We need an environment, a legal structure, a political framework that addresses the above gaps, that encourages innovation and creativity, recreate from scratch an educational system that promotes tolerance, difference, absence of taboos, freedom of expression. This is really a political decision. And if we don't do this, then there will not be entrepreneurship or a market that is more open and creates more jobs. And also, a system or a structure legally, as I said, with bankruptcy, but also addresses the new ways and the new entities. For example, the hybrid between social and business. So a social enterprise. You cannot have a social enterprise in Egypt because you're either treated as an NGO, which means you have all these, everybody attacks you whenever they have free time, or a business where you have taxes and bankruptcy laws. You know, so this is another dilemma. And we need such an enabling environment, which does not exist. For jobs to be created, markets has to expand, to be expanded. Adel was saying that we cannot find all these jobs because we don't have agriculture, but we can create new jobs. I mean, the .com, the eBay, these people were entrepreneurial. When we say we want the Bill Gates everywhere, is because they created a new market. They expanded the boundaries of the market. And in order to be able to expand the boundaries of the market, to create new markets so that you can create new types of jobs, you know, you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to think out, you know, you have to be able to be given chances to be invested in. We don't have a social investment framework, neither for the social enterprises nor the business enterprises. You have angel investors here, venture and growth. We don't have that. I mean, it's starting in some places in Egypt and the Gulf and other places, but it's not really a legally structure, that acceptable framework that everybody follows. We need that in order for us to have new jobs and in order to create new markets. And that's one thing. But again, and I'll go back to it, and I think people are going to be, you know, For all this to happen, we need, and we must have real democracies. We must have real political powers that do not put restrictions on thinking, on free thinking, that does not discriminate between women and men, or Christians and Muslims, or the rich and the poor. We don't need a theocracy. We don't need somebody to use, somebody in the morning said that we hope that the new fundamentalist or religiously based groups are not using democracy as a tool to take power. We don't need that. We need people who are really willing to treat all people, and again I'll speak about Egypt, all Egyptians in the same way, and to provide them, and not to have taboos. You can speak about this, but you cannot speak about that. From all the political contenders now, whether for the presidential campaign or even the parties, we have 4 groups: the Noor group, the Jama'ah, the Brotherhood, and the moderates, the Wasat, the middle groups. None of them has given us an economic vision of where they want Egypt to go. None of them has given us, by the way, neither did the liberals or the leftists or anybody else. Nobody has come up now. From everybody who is now trying to get a piece of the cake, nobody has come up with an economic vision for Egypt that is realistic and serious. You know, not like, I'm going to get rid of corruption, we're going to be better off, we're going to go to heaven. None, but nobody came and said, this is what we need to do. So, and this is what we need. I will summarize by saying that an urgent need in order for us to address the deteriorating economic conditions, the rising in unemployment, and the small and getting smaller market. And by the way, what we're really afraid of, somebody in the morning, I think Isra, was talking about that there will be another revolution if the military does not if the military doesn't leave the power. I think the military we can really win and get our rights from the military. I think others are more dangerous. However, the real revolution that's going to come, again, will be the revolution of the hungry. The economic situation among the poorest of the poor in Egypt has really deteriorated. In my other hat, I work with hundreds of thousands of poor female heads of households, and we provide them with microcredit, and 90% defaulted. You know, they were unable. The people who make their income daily are unable to survive, and there are no compensations for them. Nobody's providing that. So this is really another real problem. On a positive note, since I really depressed you, I want to say that, therefore, social entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship, whether even social enterprise or business enterprise, is a solution because it encourages creativity and entrepreneurship. It gives you hope because social entrepreneurs are found in the most dire situations. And I will just share with you one of the Ashoka fellows in Palestine who I think is brilliant. This is a young woman who comes from a very humble background. She doesn't speak English. She started the first incubator for business women, for very poor rural business women. She has never heard of venture capitalism, but that's what she's doing. She created these incubators. She provides them with seed money at the beginning. She provides them with marketing training. She helps them in the marketing and even the packaging of honey, which she's selling, and some herbal medicines, and milk. And she sells them in Palestine, now in Jordan, and now in Dubai. And she takes 20% out of their profit. So it's not a microcredit program. She's able to cover her own costs, and she managed to help 1,200 women in just the last year and a half. This woman is a social entrepreneur. She did not, you know, and in the most dire situation, and we have 61 of them in the Arab region. Ashoka is working now in 7 Arab countries, and we have 61 of those social entrepreneurs who are a hybrid between between a social and the business entrepreneurs, who are, regardless of where they are, have managed to expand the market and create new jobs and new hope for people. Thank you.